This is going to be part 5 of Federalist number 17. The books I'm going to show you here in a minute are edited by Max Farrand, and it's called The Records of the Federal Convention of 1787. It is in 3 volumes. For those of you who want to know what was said inside the Federal Convention by different delegates from different states, this is extremely important. It's actually fun to read it because you can follow the story once you get used to the characters that are there, where they're from, what their interests are, and it's available online. So wherever you are in the world, once you get to watch a little bit of these videos and kind of get comfortable with what these Federalist Papers are, what they're talking about, then you can go and look at these online and learn a little bit more in depth. These are the 3 volumes, and you see his name is up there, Farrand, The Records of the Federal Convention of 1787. That's the convention in Philadelphia in 1787 that the Constitution of the United States was written in. All right, we will start with the paragraph that says, the operations of the national government, on the other hand, falling less immediately under the observation of the mass of the citizens, the benefit derived from it will chiefly be perceived and attended by speculative men. So far he's kept on saying that the federal government is not going to overpower the state governments. State governments are going to be very powerful because they're close to you. You will be more attached to them, and federal government cannot ruin this relationship unless your state government is incompetent, cannot do its job right. Okay? And here it says, the operations of national government, your federal government is at a distance, and most of you, because you're not going to be in touch with it, are not going to even pay any attention, except it's going to be chiefly perceived and attended by speculative men. Speculative has 2 meanings, speculate. One is to bet on something or to make a bet, but here it means think. So he says there are people who will always be interested in knowing what is going on in the federal government, whether they like a job there, or whether they're just curious, or whether they're just scholarly kind. They're going to be thinking about it, paying attention to it. So he says the only people that are going to pay attention to it is a small group of people. Relating to more general interest, they will be less apt to come home to the feelings of the people, and in proportion, less likely to inspire a habitual sense of obligation and an active sentiment of attachment. Because the general government, the union government, the federal government is not so close to you, fewer of you, only a few of you will have a close attachment to it. Again, he's saying, don't listen to the ones that are criticizing us because they're scaring you and they're saying the federal government is going to get rid of all the state governments. He says such a thing is stupid, and he keeps on giving the reasons. Then the next short paragraph is, the reasoning on this head has been abundantly exemplified by the experience of all federal constitutions with which we are acquainted, and of all others which have borne the least analogy to them. So he says all the constitutions that us well-read people know about, we know that the problems that we have talked about, they have all had it. Sometimes a little bit of it, sometimes a lot of it. Actually, what he's doing is starting here and the next 2-3 paragraphs, and then in Federalists number 18, 19, 20, he's starting to get the readers to know that what he's going to be doing in the next 3 Federalist Papers is review and discuss all the confederacies of the world in the past. Because remember, I told you about James Madison getting books from France, books that Thomas Jefferson sent him, and he studied all the history of all the confederacies and wrote a few pages to himself to remember, to record what their strengths were, what their weaknesses were, so that he can learn from history. Remember I said Madison, James Madison's study of confederations ancient and modern, and that's what they're going to be doing in depth in starting the next paragraph and in the next 3 papers. And this is actually what we are doing. Okay, remember I've said all throughout this work we will be doing something like Madison did, except ours is going to be very in-depth, much better, much more detailed, and it's going to help us in the future to write a blueprint for uniting the world. So I'll continue this paragraph. Though the ancient feudal systems were not strictly speaking confederacies, yet they partook of the nature of that species of association. There was a common head, chieftain, or sovereign whose authority extended over the whole nation, and a number of subordinate vassals or feudatories who had large portions of land allotted to them and numerous trains of inferior vassals or retainers who occupied and cultivated that land upon the tenure of fealty or obedience to the persons of whom they held it. Each principal vassal was a kind of sovereign within his particular dominus. The consequence of this situation were a continual opposition to the authority of the sovereign and frequent wars between the great barons or chief feudatories themselves. The power of the head of the nation was commonly too weak either to preserve the public peace or to protect the people against the oppression of their immediate lords. This period of European affairs is emphatically styled by historians the times of feudal anarchy. Okay, this is the part that I think as we go forward, I recommend to you to watch some of the videos that BBC's done on the British history, monarchy, things of that sort. it would make understanding American history much better and much easier. This is very important. There are several series, and they should be available. One of them is called Monarchy. BBC has done lots of videos on British Empire, on history of English language, on history of the different kings of Britain. PBS channel has done a few. PBS, I've mentioned them to you before. PBS. And then I'm sure on YouTube and other channels you can find different videos by different professors that will make you a better understanding of of British history. Because you will see here, like in the next paragraph, it starts talking about the union of Scotland and England. So it's good to know all of this. It'll make you understand American history and actually what led up to the American Revolution and things like that much easier and much better. I don't have a map of Britain in front of me, but think of this as England, and Wales is here, and this is Scotland, okay? When he talks about barons and vassals and fiefs, imagine every part of this. I'm just doing this as a rough draft to show you. Imagine every one of these is controlled by a baron, okay, or a lord, or a vassal, okay? He calls us vassals, or feudatory. Might have the spelling wrong. But he says the king controls the whole land, but every piece of the land is controlled by a baron. And depending on what the relationship is between the king and all these barons, there might be peace, there might be prosperity, and a lot of times there's not, okay? So what he's trying to relate to is that he's trying to make an analogy, kind of see how this situation looks like the states right now, and whether they unite is better or whether they stay divided. So when he talks about this here in a little bit, he's going to talk about every one of these pieces of land is controlled by a vassal, and if there's not a strong king to make sure that they don't get out of hand, there will always be wars between them.